All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 567 Center's October virtual tour. I am hopeful that we have our camera situated correctly and that everything is working right and that you guys can hear me okay. Just let me know if my sound is bad or if you can't hear me, but we've got a new lapel mic now, so it should definitely help a bit. All right, we're going to give everybody one extra minute here to just file on in. So, Beverly, thank you so much for watching and tuning in. We absolutely appreciate it. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome and good afternoon. Thank you guys all for tuning in with us for this lovely October 2nd day. We are thrilled to get to open up and showcase this brand new show entitled Visionary Roots. This show is a group showing showcasing 4 different artists, all of whom were or still are Macon-based artists. So as you can see behind me, I'm giving you a quick overview. But we've got 4 separate artists: Barbara O'Deal, we've got Chris Novi, we've got Johnny Malika, and we've also got Michael Pierce's works on display with us today. Again, the title of this show is Visionary Roots. All of these 4 artists grew up or were born or raised at some point here in Macon. They are all Macon artists. Of course, Michael Pierce has worked in and out of Macon. Johnny Moe is still around in Macon, making lots of giant waves here. We've got Barbara O'Deal up in North Georgia, as well as Chris Novi. So, before we get started into the show, I'm just going to quickly read a few artist statements for each of the artists, just so that you guys can get a sense of what kind of work that they do. Barbara O'Deal and I decided to set up a show for her and a couple of her artist friends. And at the time last year, we were not sure exactly who was going to be joining us, but we did know that Barbara was the main artist that we were going to kind of group all of the show's work around. Barbara O'Deal, this is her artist statement. When limb separates from trunk, falls on the ground, or is carried by water, it begins an evolution. Nature starts the decay process. Wind, earth, water, and fire alter it and wear away the outer layers. Insects carve intricate patterns into the wood. Ocean creatures make it their home. This wood is the basis and inspiration for my sculptures. Each sculpture is composed of materials wildly harvested from their environment on forest floors, seashores, or desert sands. Throughout the process of observing, caressing, and contemplating the found branches and roots, Barbara begins a collaborative creative dance with them. Then the physical working of the wood begins, first with kiln curing, sanding, carving, and then assembling. Finally, the sculpture emerges and is finished with oils, stains, and shellacs. So most of Barbara's works here today are wood-featured pieces, and they're all very different. I look forward to showing them to you. Next up is Chris Novi. Her artist statement reads, "When I have finished a piece of art, I am delighted to see the heart of a favorite memory, a surprising, imaginative image, or especially one that makes me smile. In art, the subject and its details are very important. The image must be well crafted, and it should exploit the best opportunities the medium offers. Most often, I choose to create using a form of printmaking, etching, monoprint, lithographs, or one of the many other options that can be printed many times. The art usually is drawn on metal, incising it using sharp tools. The concept evolves in a reverse process until the final star image is revealed. It is an ideal way to work when an artist is slow, deliberate, and loves to draw. My images usually are inspired by dramatic dreams, charming people, or small things that are often overlooked. Best wishes to all of you who enjoy art. Chris. And we've got only 6 pieces from Chris, but they are all spectacular in their own right. So once again, I am very excited to get to show all of her work off to you guys. It is brand new to me as well, and so it'll be very fun to get to know your reactions. All right, next up is John Mollica, also locally known here in Macon as Johnny Mo. I only have a short bio for him. It's just a Macon, Georgia artist and promoter of music and art. During a career that has spanned the last 35 years, he has produced art for albums, t-shirts, and posters for many rock bands, including the Allman Brothers Band, Government Mule, Derek Trucks Band, and Susan Tedeschi. Johnny and I have had the pleasure of getting to work together a little more closely recently at the Triangle Arts Drive-Thru show, where we got to feature Rhonda Miller and Edisto Moore. So it was fun getting to work with Johnny on constructing a show, and now it's incredibly gratifying to actually get to showcase some of Johnny's works. He is a very cool mixed media artist, a very talented painter, and his work is definitely the work that helps bond a lot of these pieces in this show together. And finally, we have Michael Pierce. Michael Pierce is a relatively well-known artist around here, did a lot of the mural work for Capricorn Records when they originally opened. And again, I've just got a bit of a bio for him here. Pierce's highly textured found object sculptures combine natural materials like branches, feathers, and shells with man-made elements like nails, ceramic bits, spools of thread, and crushed metal retrieved from a paper mill. His large-scale paintings are full of layered geometry, swirls of subdued color, and hidden patterns. A tribal-esque garment sewn from repurposed fabrics is reminiscent of the robes worn by Eddie Owens Martin. Though always boomeranging back to the South in his hometown of Macon throughout his life, Pierce has embarked on several adventures that has taken him all over the world. After becoming a pro at making tofu and launching Wildwood National Foods with friends in the Bay Area in the late 70s, he met a German couple who invited him to travel to their town and help establish the first tofu shop in Germany. While there, he became friends with a filmmaker who was planning a project in India, and after 6 months of helping to build a bus, he set out with a crew in the year of 1982 to do a film about music, yoga, and culture. A year later, he found himself working on a new project, this time focused on American Indian filmmaker and actors. Pierce's carpe diem attitude and free spirit are reflected in his artwork, which often makes something out of nothing by transforming found objects and recycled materials into interesting art pieces. So, now that we have gone through all of our artist statements and bios, let's jump on into the show, shall we? Thank you guys again for tuning in on this lovely October 2nd afternoon for the show Visionary Roots. I'm going to turn the camera around and we're going to begin. All right, and to start us off today, we are going to begin with some of John Mollica's pieces here. Let me change up my angle really quickly. There we go, that's better. All right, now, so these are some of John's paintings. This one incorporating some mixed media bottle caps and is actually done on a wood board. This title is called Run for the Roses. And this is with acrylic paint. I figured this piece next to our very fun Jerry Garcia was absolutely appropriate. And we'll pull on over here to our Jerry Garcia piece. Keep America weird. Absolutely. Could not agree more. I'm sure Garcia couldn't agree more. I'm sure Austin, Texas couldn't agree more. And hello, Kathy. Hello, Jesse Kirkland. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you earlier. Renee, thank you so much for joining in. And of course, all of these pieces are for sale. You can either give us a call here at the 567 Center, or of course, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock to 4 o'clock. We do have our doors open, so we certainly encourage you guys to come on down and come take a look at all of this wonderful work. All right, here, so we are shifting on over into our first Barbara Odile sculpture. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so that you guys can see a little bit more of the intricacies. But Barbara is really talented at finding these natural wood objects and turning them into a lot of kind of human-like individuals. She works, a lot of her titles are goddesses, so she definitely takes history into account when it comes to the piece itself, and absolutely enjoys finding the form in the piece. Hello, Mary. Hello, Glenn. And hello, Stephen. Thank you guys all for joining us this afternoon. It's much appreciated. I'll zoom back out a little bit here so that we can come on in. And this is called Transformation here. And so you can see that this piece is kind of almost breaking out of its wood shell as he dances through the universe. All right, and then we're going to come on over to the Goddess of Waves and Wind. This is another Barbara Odile sculpture, and let me actually rotate around here so that we can get to the front side of her, because this is a very cool piece. This is all made of wood, all from the ocean here, and you can see it's still got little barnacles and other little encrusted creatures inside the wood. So really, really tactile piece. And of course, behind the goddess here is our very first Michael Pierce piece. And what I did with this show, because we had four such different artists, was I tried to really construct a flow utilizing all four of the artists to kind of tell a bit of a story as we move through here, and mostly through just how the pieces spoke to each other here. So I'm going to pan up and show you this Michael Pierce tapestry. And so this is a wonderful example of Michael Pierce's work here. I think any of you who know Michael would certainly agree. And it seems to me like he tends to start with a very colorful base and then basically build up a lot of different layers so that as he goes, he's able to put in a lot of form and line work. And then after he figures out his line work, he starts to fill in a lot of the void space to create this truly multi-dimensional piece here. You know, it's definitely got crazy figure-ground relationship between the way that all the top white lines move versus the voided black spaces with all the color on the underside. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so that you guys can really jump into some of these textures and colors. This is probably one of my favorite tapestries of his that he did for this show. And actually, I take that back. He did not do these for this show. These are a little bit older works for him. The newer works that we have for him are found object pieces, are natural-made object pieces, truly. We have a lot of beautiful gourds that he has done. So really cool and unique work, and definitely screams Michael. I'm going to just turn the corner a little bit for the goddess here. Lose a little bit of the Michael background, but see if we can't showcase her a little bit more. So Barbara likes to sometimes work with an individual piece, as is with the first piece that we showed back here. This is all one individual stick that she has kind of whittled down and taken the best parts of, and of course threw in some feathers to help give it some added texture. But these pieces here are multiple found objects all put together that she then kind of whittles down and constructs to create these human-like figures. All right, so we're going to continue on with our tour, and we're going to jump into actually one more Barbara piece here. And let me adjust my angle once again. That's better. All right, and this is Guardian of the Winds. And I'm going to come on in a touch. So Barbara works all across the size spectrum here. So Barbara's got a couple of much smaller wall-mountable pieces. She's got some much larger sculptural pieces. But this is a really simple and beautiful wood piece made of 3 different pieces of wood and ocean casing and a little bit of shell. Change that. And then right above her here, we have our very first Chris Novi piece. And this is a etching. And it's called Lester's Second Brunch. I'm going to try to zoom in and nix as much of the reflective lighting in here as possible so that you guys can really get a good sense. And so this is an etching, which is basically cutting into a metal plate or a plastic plate, whatever the artist chooses to use. They cut in, and those are the areas that hold the black ink in here. And then what they do is wipe the top of the plate, which creates all of that negative space, and then they're able to actually use the plate itself to play around with the ink to create different gradients on the back. And as you can see here, she was even able to use some mineral spirits to kind of put in what looks like stars in the background. But a very detailed etching. All of Chris's work is incredibly detailed, which is very, very lovely. And like she said, she likes to work so that she can not mass produce, but can produce a number of pieces with one plate, which is always a printmaker's love, is the fact that you're able to knock out, you can put in a lot of work on a plate, and then you can get a lot of different pieces out of it because you can play around with the ink itself, you can play around with how much you wipe off, how much you leave on. So a very cool piece. And again, I'm sorry as always, like every month, that we have glare in the glass from our lighting in here, but that's just how it goes right now. All right, so now we're going to jump into some of Michael Pierce's newest works. And these are his gourd pieces. I've titled them Abstract Gourds since he did not necessarily say what the title was, but he has decided to play with enamel paint and lots of different gold leafing. Michael actually grew all of these gourds that we have in here, and as you can see, we have a lot of gourds in here. So Michael actually grew these, which makes them even more interesting to me because he was able to hand select exactly what shape gourd he wanted and what size he wanted, how he wanted it to stand, how he wanted it to lay. He played around with a lot of the cuts that he did in them as well. So I'm actually going to come over here. I'm going to pick this guy up and show you. They're incredibly lightweight because they are gourds. All of these are most of them have some sort of gold leafing on it, so as you can see in here, it's got these beautiful reflective qualities. But then what he also did was put in a lot of this enamel paint on the gourd surface to give it a real textured appearance. He played around with both hand painting it, but also did some, took some adhesive spray and put down some paper and then use that to guide the paint and basically do a reductive painting on it. But I think these are really unique pieces. I always find Michael's work to speak volumes and is always very much his own. And I think everybody would agree this is a little bit new for what Michael does, but not really. It's mostly just playing around with some of the foilings and how he was utilizing some of those enamel paints on here. But got a really smooth surface, a little bit of texture in here, but some areas are incredibly smooth. Even the gold is very smooth where it looks rough. It's a really vibrant pieces here. All right, and while we are over here, I'm going to jump us up and back onto our next Barbara Odile piece. And this is Priestess of Flowing Waters. Let me see if I can't zoom out a little bit. Yep, there we go. Get a little light on her face here. So once again, using kind of just the base stick that she has found here, this gorgeous wood that has kind of created the flow of the body itself. And then she finds these knot pieces and creates kind of faces, kind of heads. You know, she leaves it very ambiguous, but gives it this human-like appearance to it. Of course, this one also has the pheasant flowers in it for the headdress. But this wood is just so soft and supple. Like she said in her bio, she bakes the wood and then she sands it and then she oils it. So, you know, each of her pieces is very, very texturally driven, and that is part of what makes them so fun. But I think this is a really interesting piece because it's a very, very tall piece, but the way that it flows along the wall just gives it a little diagonal, gives it some motion and some movement in here. And hello, Linda and Jeff and Carol. Thank you guys all so much for joining us this afternoon. And of course, guys, if you have any questions about anything, you are welcome to write in on our live video right now, and I'll probably get a delay in seeing it, but I'll be happy to answer anything I can. Otherwise, if you have any further questions, we are opening the gallery to the public on our Monday through Friday, 11 to 4 o'clock. So if you have any interest in coming down and seeing these pieces in person, which I would highly recommend doing because, as always, the camera kind of takes these 3D exhibits and turns them 2D anyway, but a lot of these have a very textured approach to them and definitely makes a giant difference to get to see them in person and see all of the little divots and creatures that are inside a lot of Barbara's work especially. And of course, too, you can always just give us a call. We're happy to do stuff over the phone. So if you find anything that interests you, let us know. All right, we're going to jump over to another Barbara piece here. And actually, most of Barbara's pieces that we have in the gallery are brand new works that she has created. This is one of the very few that I have actually showcased prior. This is called Firebird and is actually one of my favorite pieces of hers because, again, it just shows you how she finds these objects and then kind of constructs a backstory to them. She finds the form in the object and then builds a narrative around that form. And I think Firebird is such a unique title for something like this. I also love how this piece is weighted because it sits very hard to the left here and, you know, kind of cascades over itself, making it a truly unique piece. And it is just a gorgeous piece of found wood. Again, the colors on the camera are a little bit harder to show, but there's actually a very, it goes from very dark, almost chestnut, up to this brighter yellow on the inside. So some of the veins really do feel like fire, and it's got a kind of a Firebird Phoenix-like feeling, although I will not call it the Phoenix because she does have a brand new piece that we will see at the very end of the exhibit, which is the Phoenix, and it is also a stunning piece, also dealing with how the wood ebbs and flows in its color and gradient. All right, so now we're going to move up to another Chris Novi piece. This is called Softer Voices. And once again, this is an etching done with ink and an etching plate. so that she's able to construct a number of these as different as she would like. I'm going to move out of the way of these ceiling lights here and try to get a good shot. There we go. And I will zoom in a good bit so that you guys can really see what's going on in this piece. But again, this is called Softer Voices. I really don't know much about the backstory of this piece specifically, but it definitely has kind of a quietness compared to some of her other etchings. Makes me think of a Paul Simon song. I don't know why. So just really sharp, nice etching work here. This was my first time getting to work with Chris, and the only other things that I really got to see from her were what Barbara brought down as examples last year. Which were absolutely fantastic, and we actually have one of them in the show, which we will get to in just a couple of pieces here. All right, so in the meantime, we're going to shift on over and jump on into another Michael Pierce tapestry. And this is a very monochromatic tapestry, and kind of grays and beiges in the very background with lots of black and white. So a total gradient piece here, but really just showcasing a lot of form, a lot of shape, some wonderful line work. I think that's something that has always endeared me to Michael's work, specifically is his line work. It is just so unique, and it always blows me away that all these different artists can all produce the same lines, and yet how you go about it on your composition just absolutely changes the whole structure and nature of it. And again, these are a little bit older. He did these series of tapestries in 2016, so only about 4 years old. But I think they have been around a little bit, and I'm really thrilled to get to show them off because I feel like these definitely help kind of coalesce some of the fine artworks of Chris's with kind of that formational work of Barbara's. And speaking of Barbara, we're going to jump into her newest and probably largest sculptural piece that she has here with us today. And this is the Aztec god of love, dance, and fertility. And I'm sure some of you guys can guess why. But a really cool piece. This one uses cactus from the Mojave Desert, and that is what the legs and the chest are made out of. And let me just zoom in on this so that you guys can get a good sense of this texture. And it's got that amazing repetition pattern going through it because of how the cactus dried out. She also uses this beautiful dark piece of wood for her base here. But there's so much movement in this sculpture. It's an incredibly humanistic form. And of course, she loves to incorporate a lot of the feathers. I think they give them a little bit more of a showing and showcasey feeling, gives it kind of that human headdress, clothing feeling, and continues on with the very natural found object idea that she works with. But look at that face. So this is what I'm talking about. She kind of just hints at the face in these amazing wooden knots that she finds. Look at that. Is that not crazy? And then she just builds up their bodies and gives them a form and gives them a purpose and gives them a backstory. And I think working with the gods and goddesses is a really unique way to kind of give them a lot of history and give that natural material ageless quality. God of fertility. Hello, everyone who has joined in since. Thank you, David, and thank you, Philip, for joining us. We appreciate it. Happy Friday. All right, we're going to jump on over here now to a few more Barbara pieces. These are some of her real miniatures here. So we've got the Wise One on the left, and we have Bone Dancer on the right. And let me come in and zoom in on these guys. So these are very small pieces here, and these are all different found objects. Wise One is a magnolia pod mixed with wood and bone. And you can actually see here the kind of arm, shoulder piece itself is an old vertebrae. Into that magnolia bud down here at the bottom, all mounted into this really unique piece of rock. And then, of course, over here we've got Bone Dancer. So I thought that these two would go well together since they both kind of have this clothing in bone. And this is a poppy head as an actual head. And, of course, the bone collar into this really unique long body. Again, mounted on a beautiful piece of stone. Let me zoom back out a little bit for you so you guys can see them in their entirety. Really unique pieces. I love where Barbara's mind goes and how she just interprets the natural world. All right, and then we're going to move up into, I think, my favorite Chris Novi piece here. It is just a really, really brilliant etching. All right, so this is called The Master of Possibilities Sallies Forth. And is this not great? And once again, I'm sorry about the light reflection in the glass. Let me try to get as much of that out of the piece as possible. All right, that's pretty good. I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can see the full scene. Start at the base here. I mean, look at how intricate she had to engrave all of these lines, and just they're beautiful floral arrangements down here that then juts into this wonderful array of diagonal bamboo, at which top the Master of Possibilities sallies forth. And of course, more floral bordering up at the top here. But I think this is an incredibly successful print. Just the gradient in the background, everything about it is wonderfully done. And it is just such a unique subject matter. Almost surreal in a way. And yet doesn't necessarily scream surrealism. But a really wonderful piece. And of course, for everybody who is just joining us, again, thank you for joining us. Of course, we're doing virtual tours right now because of COVID, but we are hoping that we can start shifting around a bit. But in the meantime, we are open Monday through Friday, 11 to 4 o'clock, and would absolutely love to have any of you come on down, check out all of these pieces in person, because like I was saying before, it's just, this is a lot of 3D work, and with the camera breaking it down into a 2D plane, it just automatically changes the sense of the piece. So I'm doing the best I can to really show you guys the depth of Barbara and Michael's work especially. But to come see it in person will make a giant difference. So we certainly encourage you guys to come on down and check it out. All right, so now we're going to shift over to a few more Michael gourds, and I really love these. These are just I just love the patterning that he mixed here on these and the colors that he used. So this one here is what I was talking about before. This is all paper bits that he had glued in randomly along the actual gourd itself. And then he used a black enamel paint over top to fill in and then scraped the paper off to give it that line work texture, which is just kind of very quintessential Michael, in my opinion. And of course, here is the hand-painted version where he did the hand-painted base layer, of course, has a lot of color thrown in on the base, does a lot of his line work, and then on both of these finishes that off and utilizes the gold foiling to pop very specific areas and sections of the piece. I think these two looked great together and are just incredibly successful color-wise. I really, really love this red-orange that he has on the underside of this one over here. It is just beautiful. And so I certainly, if you're interested in the gourds, encourage you guys to come down and take a look at them because especially being full 3D objects, they could be displayed upside down, they could be hung, amazing shelf pieces, and just a really unique piece to have and own, especially by Michael Pierce. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on these just so that you guys can see a little bit more of the detailing in these pieces. And that's all that gold foil there, which I think pattern-wise just really complements his line work patterns on the underside. All right, so we're going to zoom out a little bit from there and jump up to another Barbara O'Deal piece here, and this one is called Hathor. And this is a tall, dark piece. This wood is like a black wood. This uses just basically one piece of wood, which is really, really cool. And I'm going to come over here so you guys can really see how this one piece of wood has grown in on itself and grown very tall. And then Barbara put this beautiful black on top. And I do believe that is a coconut that the head is carved out of up there. So again, an interesting mixture of found objects from around the United States here. But a really cool piece. I think this piece sits on the wall so well and just absolutely can sit alone as a piece, which is why I made sure to give it lots of breathing room here. It isn't that unique, and I think just what an amazing piece of wood that she was able to find and give a form and a body to. I'm trying to show you guys this face, but it is so black that it is very hard. It's got very little light that reflects off of it. But a beautiful wall-hanging piece of Barbara's. And very pared down, very simple. It's got a relaxed nature to it. I think part of it's just it's got so many strong verticals that run up through it, and then those few diagonals just kind of fuse everything together with a little life, and is a really, really cool piece. All right, so we're going to continue on our tour here and shift over to our final Chris Novi piece on this wall. And let me try to do the best to get the glare from the back out. So I'll probably just come in really close here because we have a white wall behind us. But this is called Night Voyage. And this was one of the first pieces I actually saw of hers. This is a lithograph, so this is not an etching. It's done a little bit differently. My lithography skills and knowledge are limited. I know that there is regular lithography and waterless lithography, but basically it uses an oil to actually hold the ink in place, so you draw with the oil itself. And then you're able to wipe off excess oil, which will give you all of that negative white space back in. And it creates some really deep, deep darks compared to the etchings where it's a little bit more of a gradient. I mean, this almost looks like a charcoal piece. And again, I'm sorry we're getting a little glare on this one because of where it is in the gallery, so I'm trying to give you the best sight line. That's a pretty good one right there. And then down below that, since that was Night Voyage for the ship, I tried to kind of keep the goddesses of Barbara's work in alignment with whatever piece was up above. And so this tiny little piece is called Sea Angel, and it also utilizes the vertebrae bone for kind of the clothing and arms. This features a seashell for the face, and this really, really wild seashell here at the bottom. And then handmade paper is what you're seeing here for the hair. Barbara must have made some paper and kind of broke the fibers themselves apart a little bit to kind of give it a weightless feeling, to really make it feel like this is a sea angel and under the water floating around. But this is such a small piece, but I really think this kind of shows the brilliance of Barbara, how she's able to pull together these color schemes and everything else all through found object. I love the little purple face on the shell, how it matches in with kind of the purple of the dress, if you will. And then, of course, this dark, almost burgundy in the hair of this paper. It's a really, really interesting mixture of items, and I think a really successful piece. Come around to the other side here. All right, and then from there, we've got two more Barbara pieces and one more Michael piece on this wall. So I'm going to actually jump on over to this Barbara piece, which is also brand new. And this is called The Rock Bird of Prey. And I'm going to try to get you an angle here so that you can really see the bird of preyness, because it is absolutely in there. All right, let me set it here and see if I can't zoom in a little bit. And actually, yeah, this shot shows you really well what I'm talking about when it comes to the stripedness of the wood that she finds in those different colors and hues and tones and how it throws the light. But you can see here's kind of the face. We've got the wing and the legs. This is a kind of tripod piece. So it's got a lot of motion in it. Yeah, let me hit it from here as well. Zoom in. I'll walk you around to the other side too so that you can really see it, because this is such a angled piece. There you go. That gives you a little bit better of an idea of its intense shape and how it sits. It's got this beautiful thin leg. It ebbs and flows from really thin to really thick, and with these really giant gradient color shifts. All right, and then we're actually going to head back over here for a moment. I'll give you guys a good front-on view, and then we'll jump up and I'll show you this Michael Pierce tapestry here. Actually, let me quickly readjust my camera angle. There we go, it's a little better. All right, so this is another Michael Pierce tapestry here. I'll zoom out a little bit so you guys can get a full sense of its scale. So really unique piece, kind of reminiscent of the first piece, but a lot more gridded and a lot more just big, large brush strokes and large line work. The first two pieces that we saw way back over here, of course, they had a lot of that thin line going through them, which really gives it a super directional approach to the piece, whereas this one is definitely far more gridded. So it's very constructed, almost reminds me of a cityscape from the sky, maybe like Paris streets or something like that. You can see the avenues and boulevards. But it's really cool. Again, I've always been drawn to Michael's work like crazy. I have seen his work around here since I was a young kid. So I am incredibly honored to get to showcase his work at the 567 Center. And really honored that he brought such beautiful pieces and all of his new gourds. But this is definitely what I think of when I think of Michael Pierce. And of course, this has a lot of color in it that the camera might not be catching all of, but it's got a lot of kind of muted blues and cream yellows with then a couple of really vibrant pops of red in the background, which is really fun and gives it, your eye cannot settle anywhere on this piece. It is just constantly moving you through it. And because of the way that he did all of this grid work, he could have easily done the grid work going flat across the piece and right up the piece, which would have given it a much heavier structural feeling. But instead, he threw in all of these diagonal lines in here, which gives the piece kind of a calming and energetic sense, even in its chaos, which I think is very interesting. All right, and then we're going to shift on over here to the final Barbara piece on this wall. And this is called Uni, Goddess of Light, Creation. And this is actually the second time that this piece has graced our gallery. We had this piece in the Miller Lanier exhibit that we hosted last year, which is actually where I met Barbara. And so we have, I think... actually, no, this is it. We have one additional piece that we have gotten to showcase of hers in the past, but every other piece that she has brought in is brand new. But let me zoom in here for you guys. Sorry, we're getting to my darkest portion of wall in this corner of the gallery, so I will do my best to get this lighted for you guys. But I really love this piece. As you can see, this also uses another chunk of that cactus in here in the kind of chest area. And what was interesting that Barbara was telling me was that these cactuses between this piece here and that piece right here is that though the cactus came from the same desert, they worked their way to Georgia at incredibly different times. And I just think that's really cool that over the years she's able to kind of go back. And of course, the title of this is Visionary Roots, and she's able to kind of continue to go back to her roots time and time again and re-explore media that she has used in the past. And speaking of the title, we called this Visionary Roots because, again, all four of these artists were originally Macon artists, or at least born and raised here in Macon. Three of them have gone to do some more significant work here, Barbara, Michael, and Johnny. And again, Chris is... up in Athens, so she works there, but Michael Pierce is also now in Athens. Barbara's up in North Georgia, and Johnny Moe is still here, so we're still very lucky to get their work around the state, but of course they have all gotten to move on, and like we were talking about earlier, a lot of them have gotten to move around the country and around the world, showcasing and pursuing their artistic careers, which is wonderful. All right, we're going to move on over here now. I'm going to show you guys this new wall. I'm going to start out by trying to give you a overview of the whole wall here. because I really like how this came out. I thought this was just a cool, unique display. And so you can see here we've got Barbara and Michael Pierce. And we've got two pieces by Barbara. The one on the right is Gaia, and this piece we have shown before. And the one on the left here is titled Shape Shifter. And you can absolutely see these branches are large. It ebbs and flows almost as if it is flying off into space. So, whereas Barbara likes to put a lot of the human qualities in some of her pieces, and others she likes to leave it far more to the imagination and let your brain try to interpret what the form is within the piece itself. And of course, more Michael tapestries and gourds. So I will start off here by zooming in on this, and we'll go through this tapestry really quick. This is a very bold tapestry with far less color and kind of more muted palette. This is in oranges, greens, and yellows with this very heavy black line work and filled space. But I just thought that it worked so wonderfully in front of these three gourds. And what's interesting with these three gourds is that, especially out of all the gourds we have in here, I really wanted to pair a lot of similar gourds together. But these three are all very different from one another, and yet very similar in their own right. The one on the back, that is kind of an egg shape, I love this piece. I really thought this piece works great with the tapestry itself because it's got that pop of green foil on it. It's also got that very quintessential Michael Pierce line work in the black and white. And then, of course, incorporates the new gilding method that he's used on all of these gourds. But I just thought that color-wise, it tied in really well with this piece in the back. And then, of course, he uses handprints on this one to the left here, which is very cool because, again, it's all in that black and white. And so, but the shapes and what it is doing on the piece is so different than in the back. The back is so structured, and this one is so loose. It very much reminds me of almost, European cave paintings in the way that he's got the prints on there, the choppiness of the white paint on the underside, and yet still uses that gilding on the top to kind of round it out and give it a polished quality. And then, of course, the one on the right, the smallest one, is a little more similar to the previous gourds I just showed you, but uses that glued paper technique on the gourd itself. So he would glue these strips of paper randomly, just kind of roll it around in strips of paper, let the paper stick. He would then use a black enamel to go over it, and then he would reduce all of the paper off so that you got all of the base color and the black doing the work of the line work. So I thought these three really looked very interesting together, even though they're all very different from the same series, all very different pieces of that series. And of course, with that backdrop, I thought that looked highly appropriate. All right, I'm going to bring us under Shapeshifter here so that you guys can get a little more of a sense. I'll try to catch some of these shadows on the wall so that you can really see how this piece ebbs and flows throughout the air. Barbara only wanted two pieces to hang, and she was incredibly adamant that this was one of them. And after getting it up, I absolutely see why. It really deserves and needs that shadow on the wall to fall. It creates a whole lot of extra form, really plays into that shapeshifter part of this piece, I think. Just get you guys a couple of angles here to really show you how that shadow plays in with all of the almost tendrils of the roots themselves. It just cascades that light. The whole piece is very bright. It's a real natural wood piece for her, very little staining or anything. She kind of just removed some of this upper layer of bark, which gives it a very gnarly texture, and yet very smooth. So a really unique piece. And then over here, opposite, this is Gaia. And Gaia is, I do believe, rosemary. And it is like a root system that does definitely have just this almost chaoticness to it, how they've formed. And of course, Barbara went in and removed the ones that she didn't think were appropriate and kept the ones that she did. And then again, built this kind of human body form into the whole piece that is Gaia itself. You can see the body right there. But it's almost maddening. It's a really intense piece. It's huge. It takes up a lot of space in the round. What's interesting is the last time I got to show this piece, it was on a pedestal, and it was good on a pedestal, but nothing like it is in the air. And I guess it's also partly like Shapeshifter. What's great about having it in the air is it allows the light to burst through it and kind of juxtapose all of these dark shadows on the wall, which makes it even a little more chaotic, but fills in this awesome background in shadow. Let me adjust my camera again here, guys. I'm sorry. His floors are old, and so is this tripod. Oh, and I'm sorry if we just bumped off there for a second. We just had a quick internet glitch, but it looks like we're back. So this is Gaia. And so I'll just zoom back out a little bit and show this wall one more time. But a really awesome mixture of pieces, I think. All right, now on to our next sectioning. And this is one of my favorites. Let's shift on over here. All right, so once again, this is Michael Pierce and Barbara O'Deal. But let's start with the musician Gourd Man because he is just too cool to ignore. And let me actually come on up on him so that you guys can really see him because he is awesome. So this is musical Gourd Man. And this is done by Michael Pierce. And again, this kind of incorporates everything that is Michael all into one thing. This is garment work. It's a lot of found object work. Amazing patterns. Vibrant colors. He incorporates some musical instrumentation. But look at these patterns in the clothing, and they all just work so uniquely together. And then, of course, his handmade and hand-grown gourds used for the face and the head and the hat. And even here on the robe itself, you can see here that he's done hand-drawn line work in on this almost piece of raw canvas on the other side. You know, he's got bells incorporated. He's got the gold foiling incorporated. He's got a little bit more of his kind of quintessential black and white line work up here. And then, of course, just even the textiles that he chose for the clothing here all have a very Michael pattern style to them, whether it's patterns that he's been utilizing in his gourds or whether it's a little bit more of that sharp contrast line work that he likes to do. But totally unique. I've never seen a sculpture like this ever. And it is just so cool. I didn't know what to expect when I'd seen the photos, but let me just zoom out so you guys can also get the full body here. So incredibly unique, a wonderful sculptural piece, and absolutely ties in and incorporates everything that I think of Michael Pierce as an artist as. And then we're going to come on back, and I'm going to talk about these Barbara sculptures. All right, so we've got two sculptures here. We've got two spirits on the left, and then we've got the fledgling on the right. And Barbara and I did not really get to discuss these pieces very much when she was dropping them off, but I do know Two Spirits is kind of a Native American reference here, and usually talking about the form of the gender, and so I think this has kind of male-female characteristics to it, kind of two entities in one body. I love the length of these legs that come into this really concise top. Let me come around to the side here so that you guys can get a good view, because again, this is a very dark wood piece. And again, mounted on natural stone as the base. And then over here to Fledgling, which is mounted on a beautiful piece of dark wood. So this is sea pod wood and feathers and dried bud. But I just thought these two pieces together were kind of unique. They both have the very similar feeling in their legs and how the actual sculpture appears. And I thought they worked really nicely together. Come in, just show you guys a little bit more of the texture of this. That's that seed pod, and it's huge and absolutely kind of feathery, fuzzy in its texture, into these incredibly smooth legs, and then this jagged base, all the soft feathers at the top. A really cool piece. All right, and then I'm going to show you guys a few more of these gourds. So what's interesting about these gourds here is this gourd right here was actually the very first one in all of these series that Michael's been working on. So this was kind of his tester piece. And again, you can kind of see a more Michael-esque feeling on the base of this one, a little bit of a difference on the final products with the gold leafing. This one is definitely a little bit more just, you know, textured. The gold leafing itself has some of these splits running through it, which I personally really like because it adds to that texture and line work style in here. But in a lot more heavy paint colors, you know, these bright reds and yellows and blues, a serious primary, the black on the base, and he did do some of the enamel paint on the actual underside of everything here, but, you know, has a much more structural intent on the top, and then almost like the gold foil comes in as a cloud effect over it instead of kind of a masking base to the whole thing. But I love this piece. I love the reds. I kind of hope to see him work out a few more that are actually a little similar to this, which we do have a couple of more here. Not quite like this, but definitely incorporating more of the color and line work into them. And once again, I paired these three together. I know that was his first, and the one next to it was done not long after, the one to the right there with the purples and the beadwork here. And so, of course, this is the first multimedia gourd that we're showing you today. Michael did all of these buttons and beads and wound them all together to create, kind of a edge to the whole top of this gourd. And then in the back here, a really simple one, and I think this is a little further down the line for him, but a really, really simple gourd. And this I find unique mostly because it is really showcasing more of the gourd and using the gold foil to just give it that beauty. He's got this textured foil, so it still gets in some of that repeating pattern and texture that Michael's 2D work is so good at doing. But all in all, it's just really showcasing the natural object, the gourd itself. And I think this is where Barbara and Michael kind of really, cross over in their ideas, is that the natural object kind of influences what the piece will end up being and not the other way around. I don't think that Michael really jumped into these with any immediate idea for any specific one. He just kind of starts with that base color or that gourd as the base and then builds it up from there. All right, so we're going to bump on over to a few more gourds paired with a Johnny Mo painting. And this is a awesome painting by Johnny. I love it. It is so cool. And so what I did on this wall was, as this last wall was Michael's gourds paired with a lot of Barbara's found object work, what I did over on this wall was took Johnny Mo's found object artwork and fine art paintings and paired them with the gourds that I thought really worked well with them. So I'll let you guys kind of look at this painting for a minute. This piece is called I Wish I Knew. And of course you can see the all-seeing eye in the palm of the person's hand here with a very abstracted face. The colors are incredibly vibrant, but it's actually a relatively dark piece. It's kind of almost got a Goya-esque quality to it in my mind, but also has some really cool contrasting colors. You've got this really bright white spot on the left side of the neck, jumping into this really heavy, dark base at the base of the arm on the left. And so, it definitely keeps your eye moving through the whole piece. And so I paired these gourds with this piece because I just thought color-wise they were ideal contenders. I wanted something that could showcase a few of the greens and reds that were in this piece. So here are two more of Michael's gourds. And this is what I was talking about, where this has that real quintessential Michael feeling, that heavy line work, that really, structured line work. Beautiful array of colors on the undersides of these. I really love the coloring on both of these. And of course, the one on the right includes a whole lot of the found object pieces and a little less of the gold foiling compared to the one on the left that really features the foiling to help finish off the piece itself and add in all of those subtle shifts in texture. And, also using that foil with the more randomized textures just gives texture on texture, really shoving the eye around the piece. You're able to move from line to line. You're able to move from leaf to base. And then the one on the right, of course, having the multimedia effect where he's, again, got a lot of buttons and beads all woven together to create kind of a topper for this piece. And this wonderful Johnny Malika painting up top to go with it. A really cool piece, very heavy impasto feeling to it, almost like he used a palette knife instead of a brush. It's just really heavy paintwork. And yet, when you jump back from the whole thing, none of it feels heavy at all. It feels very light and very easy. It's just all of that gradient in there that really captures the emotional feeling in this piece. But a really incredible piece by John and some wonderful gourds to go with it. So whoever's coming to take this piece home, you have to take the gourds with it. All right, we're going to shift on over now to our next Johnny Malika piece, attached with a whole bunch of Michael gourds. So this is a really interesting piece of Johnny's because this is a total mixed media piece. This is acrylic painted base with a ton of found object work on top of it. So old rusted out can work. Again, more of the hands with the kind of all-seeing eye. There are these figures thrown throughout here. And then, of course, it comes down. And this is where all of our artists for this show really meshed well and paired well together because, as you can see, John's got this incorporation of the bone and the found industrial objects and the natural objects, which both Barbara and Michael delve into time and time again. And then, of course, to have Chris join us is wonderful because we haven't gotten there yet. But though she has etchings and a lot of this fine art approach, she also does do some mixed media Shinkolei style printmaking, which really lends itself well to this. And we're about 3 pieces away from a very different piece by her, by Chris, that really shows how she also thinks and feels in a very similar way as to these other 3 artists. And so it's just really interesting to see it all come together and pair together where each of them do something so differently and they all approach their work in a really different manner, and yet they all take this kind of, found object work and allow the object to tell them how they're going to take the work. And I think that even goes down to the etchings when it comes to the plates themselves, the size of the plate, the type of plate that it is. All of that changes what Chris is going to want to etch into it, what it's going to make her think in her mind. All right, so anyway, we're going to jump back in here, and of course these are 3 more Michael Pierce gourds. I just once again thought that these color-wise paired really uniquely with this to have, especially this bright, vibrant yellow object in the middle and this vibrant yellow gourd, which is totally different than all the other gourds that Michael did. Once again, incorporating that woven bead pattern and button pattern into it. And then some more gold-leafed gourds in the back. I know there's a ton of different gourds. Again, I encourage all of you guys who are interested, who really like these pieces, to please come on down throughout the week, Monday through Friday, 11 to 4. Pop on in, come check out these gourds, come take a look at them in the round, in the 3D. If you ask me nicely, I might even let you touch one. Just don't tell Michael. And, it changes it up so much when you're actually in here and getting to see how the light refracts off of it and how each side of the gourd themselves is so utterly different. So I'll zoom back out here and give you guys this full sense of this piece one last time of Johnny's. And this piece is titled From Whence It Came. And I think you can see a lot of why it is titled that. It's definitely a little bit more of a darker subject matter in here. But the way that Johnny incorporated all of these found objects and again kind of constructs these figures out of them is incredibly unique and very similar to kind of how Barbara sees the world. All right, and we're going to jump on down to the final one on our gorgeous brick wall over here, and another Johnny Malika piece with some more Michael Pierce gourds. And again, what I really tried to do over here was just take the gourds and Johnny's piece and find these pops of colors that really showcased each other as opposed to worked against each other. So you can see here, Johnny's got kind of this purple reflective, it's a copper, but it has a very purpley reflection over here at the external or the internal border of the frame on the inside here. And then of course he's got this almost purple-like wood on the outside, so I decided to pair these purple gourds in with them. And these gourds are Very cool. Kind of goes back to the one we saw a little while ago, where where Michael is using his hand. So it's kind of got an ancient feel to it in a lot of ways. It's got these handprints, but then this beautiful mixture of gold foil and gold foil and purple foil, which I just think make a really lovely pairing together, incredibly royal and pristine, but also incredibly kind of rustic and ancient at the base. So really cool pairing here. I love these two gourds together. And again, I think that purple just kind of pulls right on into this piece here by Johnny. And this is titled It's titled, oh yes, Ain't That a Man? Absolutely. And we're not 100% sure who this gentleman is. I'm assuming either a local musician or a more internationally recognized musician. But we will ask Johnny and see what he says. You can see he's got the guitar hidden there in the background right under the floating fire heart, and some what appears to be chickens on hay bales. So a really cool scene down at the base as it moves then up into this gentleman's portrait with this vibrant red in the background, which is just stunning. And again, the camera doesn't quite do it justice because it's also got that kind of heavy impasto feeling to it where the paint is on very thick, but the further away you get from it, the lighter that the whole piece feels, and the more solid all the colors actually blend together to create this total piece. So a really fun wall. I really enjoyed getting to do this wall over here. And I just think that Johnny and Michael's work all just paired well together, and color-wise couldn't have been better. All right, so we're going to shift on over now. And so this is what I was talking about with Chris. This is where you can really see Chris's mind working in a similar way to all of these other artists. This is her only non-etched piece or non-print-made piece here. This is kind of a collage of texture and pattern. And again, I mean, totally reminiscent of Michael Pierce in kind of how she lays it out, how she's got all of these beautiful patterns all working kind of symbiotically with each other. Because as we know with pattern, pattern is a very hard thing to pair together, and yet when done right can be an incredibly satisfying thing. So she's got a lot of these natural patterns, you know, kind of floral patterns or oceany patterns, and then uses this middle box to kind of break it up because it's very gridded otherwise. But right there in the center, she's got those beautiful kind of splashes of blue and green, I would almost say grass, but they also read kind of like a wave. And this beautiful chincolet paper on the underside here, this marbled paper that really just gives it this, I don't know, atmospheric feeling. And I'm sorry again, guys, about the glare in here. It's just with glass framed pieces, we can't help but refract the wall behind us. But a really cool piece and something very different from Chris in the context of this show that I think 100% ties into everything else that is already in here. All right, and then we're going to go on over here into a new Michael Pierce tapestry, kind of going back to a more muted color palette and heavy on this line work. This one's got these giant circles in it. And in fact, it really kind of seems paired with the next one coming up where he's got these really heavy circles, gives it almost a cartography-like feeling to it, as if he was like mapping out oceans or star charts or something. but also has these broken up black and white lines running through it here, which gives it a very grounded structural feeling. And again, you know, is kind of Michael's base. He loves that black and white on color to really put in the flow and the form, and lets the color kind of be the eye taker. I love how these kind of bleed, and how the line work is so crisp and clean. All right, and let's move on to 3 more Barbara O'Deal pieces here. These are all brand new pieces, and I just thought these all worked incredibly well together over here on this shelf. I really originally wanted the mermaid piece to go over by one of Chris's etchings, the ship in the night piece, but I could not get it to not obstruct the actual image of Chris, so we decided to erect a new shelf, and then I decided to pair these two over here. And the one on the left is called Rememberer. The one in the middle on the wall is Persephone, and the one sitting on the shelf is the goddess of waves. And so let me see if I can't get a little extra light on these, and if not, I'll just come on in and come on up to them here. So this is the Rememberer, and he's just one big piece of bark with a little bit of natural material still attached, but this one giant piece of bark that has this beautiful ancient face on it. And the Rememberer is next to Persephone, who is reaching out and back, also on this gorgeous piece of gnarled wood with these really cool, Barbara put back in some of these funguses to help both fill in this hole here, but to just give it a little pop and a little extra texture, something a little soft. So I thought these two really paired well together and were an interesting pair. And then down here, I'm not going to try to pronounce Benthesgami. No, it's not terrible. Probably not right, but not bad. This is Goddess of Waves, and this is such a cool piece. So let me actually take you around the back too, so you can see this is 2 totally separate pieces of wood that she has constructed. The first piece to be the wave, and the piece behind to be the goddess. Almost a mermaid-esque tail to her. But how unique to use this piece of wood for the wave. It's got such a, crashing to shore quality to it. Again, beautiful gradients in these yellows to dark, dark browns. And then let me reset my tripod so I can show you a few more gourds here. In case you guys haven't been gourded out yet, I've got a couple more for you. Not too much to say about these that I haven't already said, but good incorporation of beautiful giant gourd with this beautiful foil. And Michael really didn't do too much else to these as far as underpainting. He definitely focused much more heavily on the foils for these. But I love the shapes of these guys. I think these are wonderful gourds. All right, and then into another Michael Pierce tapestry here, and this one has an incredibly map-like feeling to me. I think part of it's just the colors that he chose. Again, very kind of monochromatic, just between whites and this kind of beige gray and black. But he's got this cool line work running through it once again. Sorry, there we go. And incredible line work to create these circles. And very different than the other ones. He used a lot of line work to kind of build up this positive space in the black here in order to leave a lot of negative space inside the circle, which gives you this brightness to it, almost like a sun or a globe or something. So really cool piece, and actually the final tapestry of Michael's that we'll be showcasing today. All right, so I'm going to jump on over because I know we were starting to run over our time a little bit, and I still have a few more pieces to show off. So this is one more, and actually our final piece by Chris Novi. This is a final etching, and it's called Four Feathers. Instead of Four Fathers, it's Four Feathers. Some Native American symbology here. But again, the intricacy of her etchings just are absolutely stellar. I love how she's kind of just played with her line work here, creating these different almost Aztec-like scenes down at the bottom. These mythical creatures, which just work so well into the show, as every artist here likes to kind of create with and identify with mysticism and mystical creatures, and using history to kind of build up what they want to do in their current work. Very solid line work, very solid etching work. All right, that is our final Chris Novi piece. I was thrilled to get to showcase her work. It is lovely, and I absolutely hope that I can bring back a lot more of her etchings and print work in the future. All right, so we're going to wrap up our show actually then with Johnny Mo's work and one final Barbara O'Deal sculpture. But this is a Johnny Mo piece right here, and it is pretty self-explanatory. As we said in Johnny's bio, he's a huge music lover and a huge artist who likes to support music and musicians, and has definitely helped with Allman Brothers and a number of other relatively famous bands to promote their music and their shows. And so this is Blues is Beautiful, which is very true. I really do like this piece and how he constructed it, though, because from a distance, when you walk around, what you'll see is there's a lot of glitter that he incorporated onto the edge here. Oh, sorry. The edge over here. You can see all of this glitter is built into the framing of the piece, on top with these found bottle caps filled with like glitter gems. And what I love about it, especially at night, is that when you walk around the gallery, it really almost looks like a neon sign of light, and it is very cool. And this looks like a light piece, but it is a very heavy piece. This is on a number of layers of wood and built up in kind of a shadow box here. So I know it looks a little flatter to you online, but in person, this is a really big, hefty piece, really lovely. All right, so we've got that Johnny Mo. Then we're going to come on in here. We're going to talk about this guy a little bit. This is Careless Whisperer. And this is a painting with a little bit of mixed media in it. It says fabric and metal, and you can kind of see there in the eye and the nose and the mouth, it's been built up with these small amounts of found object, and the whole rest of the piece is just painted. So the found objects give it a slight sense of that kind of very heavy impasto technique. Almost feels like the paint has been super built up, but it has not. It's just been painted over. I think this is a really cool piece. It's dark. Almost reminds me of a Goya-esque version of the four Beatles faces or something like that. Like this would be Johnny Mo's rendition of Ringo Starr or somebody like that. So Johnny, if you're watching, that's my new idea for you. All right, and then we're going to move to one of his other larger pieces here. All right, and so this is a super heavy mixed media piece. As you can see, it is incorporating a lot of different types of found object. It is called Heaters and Electric Jesus. Heaters and Electric Jesus. And has this kind of giant, almost Jesus in the middle. Got a ton of found object work in the fact that it's got all these beer bottles and beer cap holders, and then all of these old tickets. Of course, you've got some of these rusty nails over here, kind of lending the crown of thorns idea. And of course, over here, it looks like a Jimi Hendrix imagery mixed with more kind of found object. But I'll just give you guys a moment to check out this piece because it is definitely one very, very detailed piece. Zoom in here a little for you. You guys can really see how he built up all of these layers within the artwork itself. Very successful piece, really nice composition, and something totally unique and different. All right, and then we'll shift on over to our very last Johnny Molica piece here. This is called Bayou Mahariji, and I love this piece. Again, kind of super solid painting on its base. I mean, it is just a flat, beautiful gray that he then was able to incorporate this individual's head into and kind of create his crown afro on top of that using all of these bottle caps. Got the eye patch, which I love, and the piano edging on the side. Just a really cool piece. I love the composition of it. It's just very flat. You're kind of letting the gentleman in the middle tell you the whole story, letting the bits of glitter here in his crown really guide you through, and then kind of looking at where his eye is looking to guide you around this piece, which I think is just very interesting. His eye takes you on over here to the edge, which brings you to the piano. The piano brings you kind of back up and around and right back home to center. And again, for any of you who are just joining us, of course, all of the work in this show is for sale. I would absolutely encourage you to come on down Monday through Friday, 11 to 4, to come take a look at these pieces in person. Being a mixed media and multimedia show, a lot of these 3D pieces are need to be viewed in the round. A lot of Johnny's pieces, even though they are 2D, have all of this mixed media qualities to them and also deserve to be viewed in person. All right, and then finally, last but not least, we have one final Barbara O'Deal sculpture here, and this is the Phoenix that I mentioned earlier. And I really like this piece. Actually, let me zoom out a little bit so that you guys can see the whole piece here. Sorry, my tripod is not wanting to cooperate with me. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is the Phoenix piece. I'll zoom in a little bit. This is all one piece of wood that she has kind of built in this nest to. So you've kind of got the rebirth into the fire of the actual phoenix here, with the head rising from the flames at the beak. And I love this piece. I really, really wanted to put this piece in the main portion of the exhibit, but because it was so tall, it would block somebody else's work, and I just could not deal with that. But we had such a tall wall over here that I just thought it was perfect and fit it super well. And you can see in here all of that beautiful gradient in the wood, and this is all natural. I mean, all of the fiery flame of this phoenix is just from the found piece of wood that Barbara used, and she kind of just removed some pieces of it to give it this incredibly fiery texture. It is a really cool piece. I absolutely love it, and I really like the small touch of the egg and the nest down at the base. Even with how she put the grass in, it's got a very fiery feel to it. It's chaotic but beautiful, structurally tall. That egg is so soft and round compared to everything else in this piece. Sorry, I know that's a little pixely here. But what a cool sculptural piece. I just absolutely love it. Let's see if I can't readjust. Yes, there we go. So a very wonderful, textured, vibrant piece to finish our exhibition off on today. All right, everybody. Well, this has been absolutely magnificent. I have had a wonderful time touring you guys around the gallery today. Thank you so much to everybody who came out to join us for our October Virtual Friday. This has been the Visionary Roots exhibition featuring Barbara O'Deal, Michael Pierce, Johnny Moe, and Chris Novi. We will be back for a November exhibition, starting our favorite things at the first week of November, and that will run for 2 months. So we look forward to seeing you again then. But in the meantime, please feel free to come down to the 567. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 to 4 o'clock. We would love to have you come in and view all of this work in person. So until then, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday. Goodbye.